What's going on, everybody? It's the Bull Show, aka Aidan, and welcome back to another video. Today we've got a little bit of a fun video to discuss about the Chicago Bulls roster. It's a game that I played before and I'll probably play again. It's called Keep, Waive, or Trade, ladies and gentlemen, where we go through the entire roster that we currently have at our disposal for the Chicago Bulls and discuss whether we should keep the player, waive the player, or trade the player in terms of what they've been doing this season and whether or not they'll be valuable to us either as a trade asset, a waiving asset, or if we keep them because they're just that good, ladies and gentlemen. But before we get started, please like and subscribe to the Bull Show. Turn notifications on and let me know in the comments below your thoughts about every single player that I'll be talking about in this video. Every single Chicago Bulls player on this team. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think about keeping them, waiving them, or trading them. I've done 2 episodes of this before. If you want to go and check those out, when obviously we had those roster changes and stuff like that, feel free, each to their own. But in terms of this video, this is the trade deadline episode, I guess you could say, and there's not much more time to do this because there could be moves happening. You just never know. Usually I go to, obviously, Google, search up the Chicago Bulls roster, and we start from the back to the front, ladies and gentlemen. So we're going to be starting off with Malcolm Hill for the Chicago Bulls. Obviously, this guy was a two-way, or a hardship deal, I should say, for the Chicago Bulls for a long period of time. And he actually impressed enough to get a full season kind of deal with the Chicago Bulls. Now, I actually like Malcolm Hill. I think he provides a lot of good things on this team at the moment, and I don't see him being a trade asset whatsoever. He doesn't have that much trade value, and I do see him as someone that can make an impact, especially when his shooting is on form. So, with that being said, I would probably keep Malcolm Hill. It's either keep or waive for me, because if you waive him for something better, I would obviously want to go in that direction. But it all depends on how many players do we really want to consider waiving, and there might be some guys ahead of him in the pack to actually consider in that regard. So I would keep Malcolm Hill on this team, ladies and gentlemen, and let's just see if he ends up getting meaningful minutes by the end of the season, or if he's just one of those guys that will come in case of an emergency. Troy Brown Jr. is next for the Chicago Bulls, and realistically, he's already been in trade conversations at the moment. A lot of the people that are talking about a Dennis Schroeder trade is involving Troy Brown Jr. in that type of situation. Now, in my eyes, you have to keep one of Derrick Jones Jr. or Troy Brown Jr. I feel like if you give them both up, it's not going to be a great look for the Chicago Bulls, because we do need that wing type player that can play defense on most of these point guards and most of the guards in the NBA, and I think both of those guys can do that. So you're down to who can offer you more for a period of time. In my eyes, I think Derrick Jones Jr. can offer us more. It might just be because Troy Brown Jr. has played a couple of games here and there. He's not been at his best. Sometimes he's played well, but I think Derrick Jones Jr. offers us a little bit more in that regard. So I would consider trading Troy Brown Jr. I know he's a fan favorite for many of you guys, and I'm definitely fine with keeping him on the team if he was to stay here. But if we are going to look for some sort of minor trades on this team, Troy Brown Jr. is probably up there as one of those guys that we would consider trading. And I wouldn't be opposed to doing that if we were to get somebody else in. If we were to get Dennis Schroeder in for Troy Brown Jr., I honestly think that is an upgrade for the Chicago Bulls. Might not be the upgrade that we want, but it's an upgrade nonetheless, and I guess that's all I really have to say on the situation. He's always welcome to stay, of course he is, and if he does stay, he's going to be a good player on this team. I have no doubts in my mind. But if we're looking to improve this team in other ways, I could be okay with trading Troy Brown Jr. Marco Simonovic, ladies and gentlemen, he's a rookie. He's currently playing in our G League at the moment. He has very raw potential on the offensive end, and we still don't know what type of player he's going to be. He's working very hard in the G League, and he's had 2 really impressive G League games in his recent performances. So, in my eyes, I would keep Marco Simonovic. Again, there's a lot of potential with this guy, but potential has to revolve around playing time in the NBA, which he's not gotten enough of. We're in a situation where we don't have enough time to develop these guys because we are trying to win now, and we do have a lot of young players on this team that we are trying to develop, and Marco might not be the top priority for the Chicago Bulls. So the G League is where he's getting a lot of minutes, and if he continues to impress in the G League the way that he is, there could be an opportunity on this team sooner than later, especially with a backup center position that is currently being questioned and looked at for the Chicago Bulls. Maybe Marco might be an answer there if he's to keep up that level of performance. He's been great in the G League so far. Let's see if he can keep it up. I would keep Marko Simonovic. I think a rookie with potential is something that we should keep our eyes on. Tyler Cook, ladies and gentlemen, he is definitely on a two-way contract for the Chicago Bulls, and it's an interesting conversation for him as well. He has a lot of upside in my opinion. I know I wouldn't say disrespect, but I know I give Tyler Cook a lot of stick, and I do question him a little bit, and sometimes he's not shown to be the best player for the Chicago Bulls. Sometimes he's not physical enough. Sometimes he loses concentration on the defensive end. Minor things that affect the Chicago Bulls in big ways. So he's, I believe, 21 years old or 22 years old. He's definitely not old, and he has a lot of room to grow. And I do like the idea of him getting significant minutes as a two-way player, because it's shown that he's playing beyond what he's expected to. So I would keep Tyler Cook for this season. Whatever we do next season is going to be up in the air, but in terms of having some sort of emergency backup, again, if we go for a backup center and we want to go small ball, maybe Tyler Cook is still the answer in that regard. But all things considered, Tyler Cook has not been good the past few days, but that doesn't mean that we need to trade him for somebody else. I don't think he has tremendous trade value either. He's on a two-way deal. I don't see the Bulls doing anything in terms of trading Tyler Cook, so that's why I would keep him. Tony Bradley, ladies and gentlemen. There's two ways I could go in this situation. Obviously, I think it's clear that most people want a backup center on this team. And in that area, maybe Tony Bradley is one of those guys that could get traded. He's on a, I guess, permanent deal for the Chicago Bulls. He's someone that does have small trade value onto this team. Maybe you could package him up with somebody else to go and get that backup center that we truly want. Or maybe he doesn't have that value at all. I don't see the Bulls waiving Tony Bradley. Until we get another backup center on this team, if we can't trade Tony Bradley, we're not going to waive him, because we need more centers on this team. So in my eyes, I'm going to be leaning on keeping Tony Bradley. That might be a little bit of a controversial one, but if we can't get him in a trade that requires to get a better player, and that's going to be very hard to do, then I do see the Chicago Bulls keeping him as that security blanket for the backup center position. Even though he's not always been great, he has been good at times, and at times he has definitely struggled. I guess it's better than not having a backup center at all, and he's definitely a 7-footer that we can use in different scenarios if the Bulls allow him to get a little bit of consistent game time. So we're going to have to wait and see on that situation, but I'm all for keeping Tony Bradley just in case we don't go for a backup center. Alfonzo McKinnie, ladies and gentlemen, I believe he also signed a deal from a hardship exemption. I think he was the first player in the NBA to get a full season deal after playing for the Chicago Bulls on 10-day contracts. And he's from Chicago, so I know many people like that about him. I'm going to be harsh here. I would consider waiving Alfonzo McKinnie. I don't think he has tremendous trade value, so I don't think a trade is involved with Alfonzo McKinnie, and he doesn't get any game time, and the last few games that he's been played, he's not played very well, and there's a reason why he's not getting game time over guys like Tyler Cook, over guys like Troy Brown Jr., and over guys like Malcolm Hill. They're clearly the priority in terms of what the Chicago Bulls are currently looking at. And if waiving him brings another buyout option to this team, that's the way that I would go for Alfonzo McKinnie. I think he could be a good player for us, but he's not shown it. And that's the thing that I always wanted to see coming into this team. I didn't want to jump the hype train for Alfonzo McKinnie, who had some great games on this team, but did it when the team was a little bit weaker. And he did have great games. But so far, with the games that he has played, some games he started, and he's only played 5 minutes, and he's off the court, never to be seen again for those games. And the reality is he's not been good enough. So if he is to stay on this team, he has a lot to prove to a lot of people, or at least a lot to prove to me for me to change my mind on that. But I would consider waiving Alfonzo McKinnie if there's a better option out there available. If there's an option that maybe we go a little bit bigger, we go for a power forward, because he is listed as a power forward here. We go for another power forward that brings what we need in terms of size and rebounding and stuff of that nature, then I think we should go in that direction. Matt Thomas for the Chicago Bulls. I think if there was any other situation in terms of our guards, we would be considering waiving Matt Thomas. For example, if we had Lonzo Ball, Alex Caruso, Coby White, Ayo Dosunmu, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan all playing at the same time, Matt Thomas is the 15th option on this team, and he should be considered for being waived. Unless we get another guard into the team, again, if we swap Matt Thomas for a Dennis Schroeder type player, then that would be okay. But We don't have Lonzo Ball. We don't have Alex Caruso. We do not have Coby White at the moment. He's only going to be out for one game, I believe. So that's a lot of our guards missing. And Matt Thomas has kind of picked up and tried to play some significant minutes in that area. So they're not going to come back, those guys, until after the trade deadline. So it'd be foolish of me now to waive Matt Thomas and not bring somebody else in. So I would keep Matt Thomas. If we do waive Matt Thomas for another guard, fair enough. If we trade for Dennis Schroeder and waive Matt Thomas, fair enough. But all things considered, I think Matt Thomas is a keep for now until we figure out how our guards are going to return. If everybody's fully healthy, then Matt Thomas could be an issue for, I guess, the next keep, waive, or trade video in, I guess, the free agency period. Very interesting to see, but I would keep Matt Thomas. Derrick Jones Jr., as I said before, for me, it's between Derrick Jones Jr. and Troy Brown Jr. And I think Derrick Jones Jr. offers us a little bit more in terms of this team, a little bit more versatility. I think a better three-point shooter overall. I think he has a 40% three-point shot this season. More athletic, can probably get a little bit more rebounds. I would keep Derrick Jones Jr. over Troy Brown Jr. I believe they're both on expiring deals, so that's not an issue. Contract is not really the issue for this. I think Derrick Jones Jr. is a better player, hence why I would probably keep him on this team. Again, being a better player means he has better trade value. So if people want to say trade for Derrick Jones Jr. and keep Troy Brown Jr., because there's not major differences between the two, I can understand that. But if we're going for who's the better player, I would probably keep Derrick Jones Jr. on this team. Patrick Williams. Very easy decision here, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to keep Patrick Williams. At the end of the day, I find it hard to believe that many people want this guy to go just because he's not played very well at the start of the season. Obviously, the Bulls have a lot of faith in this guy, and I have a lot of faith in Patrick Williams as well. Development is a risky game. A lot of people don't have time for development. A lot of people feel it's an essential part of winning a championship is to have balance between young players and those experienced players. Patrick Williams is a really young player. He's a lot of upside, a lot of potential, and clearly that is still valued amongst the Chicago Bulls, as otherwise he wouldn't be starting for this team when he was first into this team. Reality is, people will be split on this one, and I can't really blame them. Many people just want to go all in now and try to win a championship. If things like that fail and Patrick Williams develops amongst another team, we're going to be regretting that decision in my eyes. So I want to keep Patrick Williams. I know Jeremy Grant's a big option for this team, and if we could get him without trading for Patrick Williams, I'm all for it. But if that involves Patrick Williams, I will be a bit upset to see him go. But again, AK has the final decision, and he will make those decisions necessary if it is involving Patrick Williams. But if you're asking me, I would personally like to keep Patrick Williams. Javonte Green, another keep, ladies and gentlemen. First things first, his contract is very, very good for the Chicago Bulls. He's on a very cheap deal, and we don't need to really worry about Javonte Green moving teams for quite a period of time. His trade value might be through the roof as well, so maybe you could consider trading him, but what he brings to this team is very important, and he's held that power forward position down since we've needed him to do that. He's done some great things on this team. He's been a very surprising player, and I really can't believe or can't see this team really functioning that well without him, especially now. So I would definitely keep Javonte Green on this team. I don't think there's any question about that. Coby White, ladies and gentlemen, another one that's going to split opinion. Coby White has been splitting opinion since he first came into the NBA. Obviously, his rookie season was fantastic and people loved it. His second year was a struggle. People started to split on him and turn on him. His third season, in my opinion, has been very decent. But still, the conversations are had of whether or not he should be traded or not on this team. I like Coby White. I always have. I think he's a great scorer on this team. I think he provides a lot in terms of our bench scoring. And I think when this team is fully healthy, Coby White can be the difference maker in terms of winning some games and losing some games. So it's a bit of a difference of opinion, I guess you could say. Many people feel like if we're going for a big trade, 100% Coby White's in that type of situation. There's no big trade that goes down without trading Coby White for many people. And I think he's available. Let's be honest. There's been a lot of talk about Dennis Schroeder. There's been a lot of talk about Paul Millsap. There's been a lot of talk about Jeremy Grant. There's been a lot of talk about Podol, which we're talking about in another video. So many of these guys that could potentially be trading for, Coby White's going to be in the conversation for a lot of those people. Players and teams will want Coby White. I want to keep Coby White. I know it's a difference of opinion, but knowing that what he could be and what his trade value could be at the end of the season, if he continues to play well and he has good playoff experience and he plays well in the playoffs, all of these things would work very well for the Chicago Bulls. And I think we don't need to jump the gun in terms of trading Coby White. We still have a lot to learn about him. We have a lot to learn about how he's going to handle playoff situations. Is he going to perform well in the playoffs? Is he going to choke in the playoffs? Is he not a winning type of player? And we can see all those things if we keep him this season and allow him to become a player that we can see in the playoffs. Obviously, one playoff run is not going to change anything for most people, but many people can start to understand a little bit more about Coby White on a winning team. So I personally would like to keep Coby White. I think if we were going to trade him, it's either now or it's going to be in the free agency period for next season. Those are the best ways to trade Coby White. I've always said that, and I'm going to stand by that. If we want to trade Coby White, now's the time to do it. But I still think I would like to hold out hope for Coby White because he's not disappointed me this season. And I really want to see how he can go when he returns, obviously, in the next game and in the playoffs. I really want to see what Coby White can do, very similar to a bunch of other players on this team. Alex Caruso is a keep. I don't really need to go any further to that. We just signed him. He was amazing. Great defensively, very good offensively, a good playmaker. Relatively surprising in terms of how great his playmaking was for us. No questions about it. It sucks that he's been injured most of the season pretty much. That is obviously a big blow for the Chicago Bulls. I don't think Alex Caruso has been injured as much in his whole career than he has been on this team. A little bit of bad fortune there, but let's not change the narrative. He's been fantastic while he's been here, and he's going to be potentially here by the time right before the playoffs and during the playoffs. So really looking forward to seeing him return. Nikola Vucevic is the next one, ladies and gentlemen. I know many people want to trade Nikola Vucevic. And at one point of time, I probably felt the same way. I thought he was very disappointing in terms of the signing that we got from the Orlando Magic and what he's become on the Chicago Bulls. But he's turned it around the last 2 weeks. He's made me have a little bit of hope in what he could bring as the third option on this team again. He's changed his game. And that's all I can really ask for from the center that's been struggling all season, to change his game and to find other ways to impact on the offensive end. He's done what most of us have asked. He's got into the post, he's gone into the paint, and I want to see more of it. And unfortunately, if we're looking to trade him, we're not going to see more of it, are we? So I would like to keep Nikola Vucevic. Tough decision. Many people are on the trade Vuce bandwagon and they haven't got it off of it just yet. I think I want to wait and see what we could do with Nikola Vucevic in the playoffs as well. Very similar to the Coby White situation. Coby White, we haven't seen in the playoffs. Vucevic has been in the playoffs, but he's not been on a team like this in his whole career. And maybe this could be the team that could get the best out of him come that postseason. And maybe he could be the key as to how we win some of these games. Because DeMar and Zach will get the main focus. Vucevic might be the one that can get us those hard-fought victories with his offensive game in the paint. Lonzo Ball, I'm a big fan of Lonzo Ball. I have been since he's entered this team, and we always knew he was going to be the answer at the point guard position. Many of us have been talking about Lonzo Ball for years, and some of us months, and I've been talking a lot about him prior to him coming to the Chicago Bulls. We all knew that he was going to be the answer, and I think he's turned out to be the answer, ladies and gentlemen, for that point guard position. So I would definitely like to keep Lonzo Ball, and I don't think he's up for trade, let's be honest. Out of everybody that we've signed, Lonzo Ball is probably the most quiet person in terms of trades. So that's something that I'm really excited to see what he could do in the playoffs as well. But I would definitely keep Lonzo Ball. Ayo Dosunmu, he's a rookie, ladies and gentlemen. At the end of the day, there will be more conversations about Ayo potentially getting traded. I know many people don't want to hear it, but he's on a 2-year deal and he's on a rookie type of situation as well. Next season might be the season where we start to hear those conversations. Ayo deserves to be on the Bulls. Ayo should always be on the Bulls. I want to keep Ayo Dosunmu, and I'm sure the Chicago Bulls feel the same way and would want to give him the money required. Unfortunately, being in the second round, he's not on a 4-year deal like Coby White. We don't get to see Ayo for 4 years. So it's a little bit of a shorter period in terms of that rookie period for him, but it's still a period that's been worth so well for the Chicago Bulls, and he belongs here. Simple as that. If we don't keep Ayo, I'll be very disappointed. And obviously the 2-star players, ladies and gentlemen, Zach LaVine, definitely keep Zach LaVine. Again, we should give him all the money that he wants. We need to keep the core of this team together and strong. We can add additional pieces. Maybe we could change the core a little bit. But of everybody in the core, Zach LaVine is the one that should not be changed. He's the youngest guy out of the group. He is arguably our first or second best player on this team. Very difficult to see a future without Zach LaVine on the Chicago Bulls. If we trade Zach LaVine, we're going to be in a situation where we have to get a player just like him to be a functional team, and to have success the way that we're having. In my eyes, Zach LaVine wants to be here. The Bulls want him to be here. The fans want him to be here. It's a very easy decision to keep Zach LaVine. And DeMar DeRozan is having an MVP caliber season. There is no doubt in my mind that we should keep him as well. Again, it's a 6-month period. Maybe in free agency, people will say different things about DeMar DeRozan, but he's been far from the worst signing in the free agency period. That's what a lot of people were saying. The people were saying that his defense was going to be an issue. Maybe he's not played the best defense, but it's not been the biggest issue on this team. Many teams thought it would be 11th with that addition of DeMar DeRozan. All of that work, so-called, to sign him just for us to miss the play-in. Everybody said that about our team. Every social media outlet or mainstream media outlet was talking negatively about DeMar DeRozan signing. And yet here we are, first in the Eastern Conference at the moment, MVP caliber season in DeMar DeRozan. And without question, probably the best signing in free agency. Is there anybody that's been better than DeMar DeRozan that's signed on in free agency, has moved teams in free agency? Because I think DeMar DeRozan stands out as the best. He's an MVP caliber player this season, and he's an all-star starter for a reason. Definitely keep DeMar DeRozan. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Keep, waive, or trade. The controversies will continue. Many people will have their own opinions on what you guys think. And again, all I can ask is to be respectful about everybody's opinion. If someone else disagrees with you, there is no need to be harsh on them. Everybody has an open platform to speak and to give their mind. If you want to trade Coby White, it's your own opinion, and that's fine. All things considered. Same with players like Matt Thomas or Vucevic, Ayo, anybody on this team that you want to trade. I can understand it. I can respect your opinion. It's all about being respectful. No need to be harsh. No need to say people are stupid or clueless or whatever it is, because people have their own different ways of viewing this team and how we can win, and those opinions should be respected at the end of the day. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you in 6 months, ladies and gentlemen, in terms of this type of video for keep, waive, or trade. It's an interesting topic, and I always love talking about these players. And again, a lot of these players have a lot of respect, and we are showing how great we are on this team. I don't think I'd make too many massive changes. That's my personal opinion. But if AK decides to sweep the floor clean and trade some of these guys, then of course, that's the guy that I'm going to trust at the end of the day. And we'll wait and see what the outcome will be for the trade deadline. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay tuned for more. Take care.